Am I audible? Okay. Is the screen visible to all of you? Okay. Think about some fundamentals related to Java, and that was because of the concept called servlets that we are going to see today. Okay. So as I told you, servlets can be simply called as servlets. So Java is divided into three parts actually. First one is standard edition of Java. We call this as Java Standard Edition or JSC. Second one is Enterprise Edition. This is in short called as JEE. Third, Micro Edition. This is called as JLE. We learned earlier in your second year, second semester, comes under the Standard Edition, okay, JSC. And now here you're going to see two concepts which come under Enterprise Edition. That is servlets and Java Server Pages, JSP. Okay. So these two concepts you're going to learn in fourth and fifth units of this subject, respectively. And micro edition, this is an outdated one. Nobody is using over there. This is actually meant for mobile devices. And when actually Java was designed for what? Consumer electronic devices, remotes, microwave ovens, washing machine, all these things. So they are programmed using Java. Later, it became popular and it was used for even desktop applications and web applications and enterprise applications. So then came into existence all these. But servlets and Java server pages only doesn't mean that they completely constitute framework. Hibernate, Spring Boot. These are all some frameworks that are part of this enterprise edition. But you know all those things. Take at least 1 year to completely master all this. So you're going to learn only these two topics. Okay. So going to learn the enterprise edition of Java. So for this standard edition, if you just install JDK, that is sufficient. But for this enterprise edition concepts, you require additionally another software to be installed. So basically, we have something called web server, another one called application server. So we will not be using an application server. If you want to run UABs and other frameworks in JSP, we use application server. But for servlets and JSP, web server is sufficient. So one such example of web server is Tomcat, which is actually Apache organization's release. So we call it as Apache Tomcat or simply Tomcat. So what is Tomcat? It is a web server, right? So what is a web server and what is an application server that you need to know? So web server simply what it does is it is not actually a hardware entity, it is a software entity. So when you say simply a server, sometimes we also refer to that server. We use the server term to refer to web server or application server. But in general context, when you're not talking about programming, when you say server, it is a hardware entity along with the software. Okay? But here in this programming web application terminology, we use server to either refer to web server or application server. So what is this web server going to do is it is going to receive the request coming from the client computers, client machines. So at the beginning of this semester, I gave you an introduction about web applications, and at that time I told you how client server environment works, how a web application works, how the requests are sent. What is that request called as? It is called as HTTP request because client server environment works with which protocol? Hypertext transfer protocol. So we use the term HTTP request and HTTP response. So client will be sending some request and server will be responding back with response. And how the server will be responding with the response is with the help of some server side scripting program. So that can either be written using PHP, servlets or GSP. At that time. Right? So we have already seen how to use PHP scripts to generate response from the incoming client request. Now we are going to see instead of using PHP, we are going to use servlets to generate responses to the client request. But uh, deploying servlets or installing servlet required software and running them is not as simple as it is with PHP. And coming to JSP will become more simple when compared with servlets. But servlets are a little bit complex. You need to know a lot of things with this servlets. More than knowing about the topics that are there in servlets, you need to spend equal amount of time even on how to deploy a servlet and how to run a servlet program because it is based on Java and you know how a Java program is compiled. Okay. I guess you have used the command prompt console you use console and compile and run your programs manually without the help of integrated development environments like Eclipse and NetBeans. You learn the language more as a beginner. But later, once you master that, then you can go for IDEs. So I hope you have done that way only. If that is right, then please at least text a message yes. Okay. So did you run the programs Java using this command prompt like this? From here, I'm doing now. So you will be typing the command Java see some program name.java, class name.java. Is this the way you have compiled your Java program? Yes or no? Okay, fine. So, so if you are familiar with this mechanism, then that will be easy for me a little bit. Otherwise, I need to tell a lot of because I'm not going to use ID even to run servlets and JSP also. You can use Eclipse ID, but I'm not going to teach you how to use Eclipse ID. It is very simple. If time permits, after completion of the topics in this unit, I'll show you on one fine day how to use Eclipse also. But that is very simple when compared with this manual thing because ID will do everything for you. Mechanism in this approach, you need to do everything. Each and every step you need to perform. So you know each and everything A to Z of this service. Okay. So this web servers will just take the request and send that request to the corresponding script or Java file on the server, which is responsible for generating response for that request. It will act just as a mediator. It will take from one side and give it to hand over it to other side. That other side, the server side, will generate some response, give it to the web server, and web server will then give it, pass it over to the client. So that is what web server does. It doesn't do much. And it will provide the environment for these to send request and uh, generate response and send back to the client. That's it. Coming to an application server does a lot more things. So what actually your scripting language, script programs that you write on the server does, this application server also will take care of that, and they also will generate some business logic. Okay. So the business logic is usually written using any server-side scripting language. I'll tell you what is business logic and presentation logic later. So this business logic is generally done by scripts that we write either in PHP, servlets, or JSP. But to some extent, this application server will also do some business logic, because at times, if you want to make your application compatible with any other technologies, it is better to use application server, which will generate responses in a generic way, which can be compatible with any technology, whether it be PHP or servlet or JSP, whatever it is, they will be compatible. So in such scenario, we have to go for application server. But in our syllabus, we are going to confine ourselves to only servlets and JSP. We are going to use only this web server. We are not going to use application server. Okay. So let us confine our discussion only to web server Apache. So you can download it free of cost because Java is an open source. So, the API for servlets that is provided by this Apache Tomcat is also free of cost. So you can download it. Just Google Tomcat, then it will show you. Just type Tomcat download. You can see tomcat.apache.org. This is the site. Open this one and download the latest version. So the latest version Tomcat 10 beta is available now. So don't go for 10, but you can go for 9. But when you install this Tomcat 9, see that even using the latest version of Java, Java 9 or above. Don't go below Java 9. Okay. I don't know exactly which version will support which version and which will not support. But if you go beyond Java 8 and 9, Java 8 and 9 is okay, I think. But if you go beyond before Java 8, Java 7 and Java 6 versions, they will not be supported. So then you have to go down to Tomcat 7 to support them. Okay, so you download either Tomcat 8 or 9 and install it on your system. So installation is very simple. When you are installing, see that you give a different port number for Tomcat, because already you must have installed XAMPP on your system, and that XAMPP server has already taken default port number as 80. I told you, right? The default port number for any web server will be 80. Even the XAMPP's Apache server also, Apache web server also has taken the 80 as its default port number. But now we are trying to install another web server called Apache Tomcat. So when you install multiple web servers on your system, if all of them are trying to use the same port number, then there will be a conflict. If you have already started XAMPP, then this Tomcat will not work, because XAMPP is already using 80. Right? So what you need to do is you need to install Tomcat with a different port number. So if you have already installed 80 port number, by default it will take 80. Tomcat also will take by default 80. While installation, it will ask you, it will show you that port number. Just edit that port number and change it to something like 90 or something, or 8080 like this. Right? So if you take this way, then this port number will be different from the port number of. Okay. So just like you have used a local host to access the web server in the browser, how did you use to access the phpMyAdmin? You just type local. I told you what is the purpose why we use the term local host. We don't have a server hosted on a remote system. We are having the server hosted on the local computer itself. Real-time applications, both the client and server will be on different machines. Client machine will be some user, and server will be installed on a remote system with a separate set of software installed on it. But because we are students, we are learning. At the time of learning, we cannot spend that much amount of time and even expenses also that is required for deploying a server and establishing a server. So what we'll do is we'll establish a local server on the client machine itself. So to refer to that local server, we'll use the term localhost, right? So even for Tomcat also, for accessing Tomcat based applications also, we use the same local host and followed by a colon symbol. If it is using the default port number 80, then we can directly type localhost just like we did for PHP. Because we are going to change the port number to 8080 like this, then we need to give after colon symbol 8080 access, right? But before accessing this local server from the browser, you need to start the Tomcat. Just like you started XAMPP server, just like you started XAMPP server, so you need to start the Tomcat. XAMPP will provide you with Tomcat also, but don't use the Tomcat. Use a different Tomcat. Install another Tomcat on your system. I have installed Tomcat on my system. So when you install Tomcat on your system, it will be located in the C drive, right? C drive, just like exam folder is created. This folder, there will be a folder created for Tomcat also, but that will not be directly created in the C drive. Instead, it will be created in program files. Okay. So in program files, a folder with this name will be created. You can see Apache Software Foundation, right? Because Tomcat is provided by this Apache organization, so a folder with this name will be created, Apache Software Foundation, and inside this we'll have the Tomcat folder like this. So you can see the folder named Tomcat 7.0, which indicates that the version of Tomcat that I am using here is Tomcat 7. Okay, I installed it long back. So, I'm using the older version of Tomcat 7. I installed it in March 2020. Right? So you can install Tomcat 8 or 9 also, but see that you use newer versions of Java. Because I'm not having the newer version of Java, I have been using older version of Java, so I didn't use that. So in my system, the Java version is 8, JDK 8. So JDK 8 will support Tomcat 7. 9 will not support it, right? So before you install Tomcat, remember one more thing. Before you install Tomcat, see that JDK is already installed. Because Tomcat will be installed only if there is JDK. Okay? So Tomcat will work upon the existing core Java API. Right? So in order to install Tomcat, first you need JDK version already installed on your system. So see that you install JDK first, JDK 7 or 8 or whatever it is, and then later you try to install Tomcat. Okay. So I have already installed Java and Tomcat. So Tomcat is installed in this folder Apache Software Foundation in program files, and there you'll find Tomcat folder with its version name. When you open this Tomcat folder, you'll find all these things: bin, configuration, library, log, temporary, web apps. So this web apps folder is the most important thing that we need. It is just like a htdocs folder for PHP. So all the applications that we are creating, where are we creating? We are creating in htdocs folder, right? So the same way, all the servlet applications that you're going to create, they must be created in this web apps folder. So if you open this web apps folder, you will find a lot of these folders. All these are created already by me long back. They were created in 2020. You can see where they were created. Fine. So, but some of these folders will be automatically created when you install Tomcat. If you check a checkbox called examples, then automatically some example servlets also will be deployed and available in your system. You can run them directly without you writing programs. Just for your understanding sake, right? The remaining folders are created by me. So usebin is created by me, servlets is created by me. These root will not be created. It will be already there existing. Page context, manager, JSP plugin. So all these folders are related to both servlets as well as JSP. Even when you are working with JSP also, you have to create a folder in this folder, apps folder. So if you understand servlets, then automatically JSP will become very easy. And the process for running JSP programs is very simple when compared with the process for running servlets. You need not compile every JSP program like you do for servlets. For every servlet program, what we need to do is we need to write two files, one HTML file and one servlet file, because we cannot combine Java and HTML together like you do with PHP. So how did we write PHP script? We have combined both PHP code and HTML code into a single page, and we have saved that file with .php extension. But that will not be that is not the case with Java servlets. We cannot combine Java program and HTML program together into a single page, and we cannot save it with .java extension or .html extension. Okay, so we need to create two separate files for every HTML file that we are going to create. Not combine both. But in Java program, servlet program, you can write HTML code by putting it in a print state, just like you use system.out.println statement. You have a print and println functions in servlets also, but they are not system.out. They are part of another class called printWriter class, IO package. So we are going to use that printWriter class object and call the method print and println methods to print something on the browser. So within that, that will be similar to echo function in PHP. And echo statement in between, within the echo statement, within the double quotes, how you have been writing the HTML tags. The same way you can write HTML tags even in print statement. So that way you can write, but you cannot write HTML code and in between somewhere you cannot write Java. So that is not permitted. So you need to create two separate files. One is HTML file and the other one is Java file. Okay. So when that is the case, what you need to do is you can create a HTML files and save them in that folder that we are going to create. I'll tell you the folder structure also today. How to create a folder structure and deploy the servlet and then run. It is not simple as it is with PHP, right? So I'll tell you the step-by-step procedure how to write a servlet program and then deploy that servlet into your web server and run it. It will take some time for that. So this is the only time that I'm going to teach you about this one. Each and every time If somebody is missing this class, I'm not going to teach you next time, right? Anyhow, I'm streaming it live on YouTube. You can watch this procedure later. And I have shared the YouTube link also in your group just before the beginning of this class, so you can watch it there, right? But attendance will be taken here only. Okay, so so before you install Tomcat on your system, you see that JDK is already installed, and the JDK is compatible with the Tomcat version that you are going to install. And give a different port number other than the XAMPP port number. Okay, so let me explain you the directory structure. So when after installing Tomcat in your C drive, whichever drive your operating system is installed, there you will find this program files folder. If you are not able to find the Apache Software Foundation folder in this program files, go and check it in program files x86. It depends on what type of operating system you are using, whether it is a 64-bit operating system or 32-bit operating system, depending on, and even the version of Tomcat, whether it is 64-bit or 32-bit. So depending on that, any of these folders will contain that one. Okay. So if it is 64-bit, then this will be available in program files. So in program files folder, you will have a folder called Apache Software Foundation. Just open this Apache Software Foundation, then you will find this Tomcat folder along with its version. Once you open this, you need to find all these things. Okay, so now I am audible. I think I just muted my audio, right? So you will find this folder if, in any of these two folders. You will find Apache Software Foundation folder. So when you open this Apache Software Foundation, then you will find this Tomcat folder along with its version name. And then when you open this Tomcat folder, you will find all these folders configuration, library, logs, and web apps. And then you will find these some icons and license notice and release notes, all these things. Right? So if you find all these things, then it means that Tomcat is properly installed on your system. Right? Then you'll contain when you open this web apps folder. This is where you have to create a folder. Every servlet application that you're going to create, just like we created a folder for every application in PHP in htdocs folder, you need to create a folder in web apps folder here. Okay. Say for example, let me open one project for you, servlets. Right. So this is a folder where I created some applications here, some cookies, sessions, login, everything. Right. So this these many applications are created. I'm creating many folders. So let me show you one of the by opening one of the folders. So you can directly create these folders directly in that web apps folder after creating the first level folder itself. So, but I'm creating subfolders because this again servlets contains many other sub applications, subfolders, specify hidden form fields, cookies in servlets, servlet configuration, servlet demo, sessions in servlets, just like you have seen sessions and cookies in PHP. Even in servlets also, you'll see how to create cookies and sessions, and then a login application, URL rewriting, and some other folder I've created. Right? Let me open this servlet demo folder. So this is the folder that I created here. So this folder must contain immediately a folder called web INF. You need to create all these folders, right? It will not be created automatically. You need to create all these folders. So the folder name must be web.inf and it must be in capital letters. Okay, and web and inf are separated by a hyphen symbol. So you understand it is hyphen. And besides, along with this folder, all the HTML files that you're going to create, they must be saved in this folder, right? Alongside the web.inf folder, not inside web.inf, but outside web.inf within the folder that you created. So if you observe, color get and post parameters, these two are HTML files. And along with these HTML files, you need to create Java files. So where to create these Java files means web.inf. You need to create a folder, another folder called classes. This must be in small letters. Classes, and when you open this classes, you will find Java files. So look at this color get servlet file, hello servlet file, post parameter servlet. All these three are Java files. And when you compile these files from this folder, the dot class files will be generated corresponding to all these three files. You can see the respective dot class files, right? So you can save this dot Java files anywhere else, but after compiling those Java files, the generated dot class files must be definitely put inside this classes folder. I can save this Java file somewhere on desktop and compile it there. And once the dot class file is generated on desktop, I can cut them and paste them here in this classes. But that is an extra work, right? So instead of doing so, what I've done is I've saved the Java files also in classes folder only, and I'll compile it here from this folder. Automatically, the dot class files will also be placed inside the same folder classes, right? So this is how you need to place HTML files and Java files. And third thing is, next thing is this file. This is an XML document. This file must be saved as Web Dot Xml only in small letters. You cannot create this XML file with any other name. You need to create this file with its name as Web Dot Xml. This file is called as deployment descriptor. It's called as deployment descriptor. And I'll tell you what must be written in this XML file later. But let us first list out all the steps that we have. This concept that I am discussing now, this is called as directory structure. So first, what we need to do, create a folder, apps directory. Okay. So where you need to create a folder, web apps directory. You know where this web apps is available, right? So, and what is this folder? Folder for every application that you are creating. So how many applications you are creating, that many folders you can create, right? So once you create this folder, inside newly created folder, you need to get another folder. Its name as web hyphen inf. Okay, it must be web hyphen inf. Exactly, it must be in uppercase letters only, all capital letters. Both these words web and inf must be separated by a hyphen symbol. Don't get confused. It is not a underscore. It is a hyphen symbol. Okay. So the next step is within the same folder. Same folder in the sense this one, newly created folder. Same newly created folder. Alongside -inf for all the XML file, right? So within the newly created folder alongside webinf folder, you need to create store all the HTML files. Then the next step is side web-inf create another folder named as classes. Okay? And this classes must be created within lowercase letters, all lowercase letters only. Spelling mistake also should not be there. Okay, and place all the dot class files, the classes folder. You can mention it is optional. I'll put it in brackets. Dot Java files. Then the next thing is a XML file name as .xml. Create an XML file with its name as web.xml file and save it there alongside classes. So where did I create that web.xml file alongside classes folder? Right, that means within the webinf folder, right? Webinf. Right? So these are the steps you need to follow. Web.xml file. What is this called as? Web.xml file. File is called deployment. If there is no web.xml file created, then your servlet program will not work. Okay? What do you mean by deployment means? Software terminology, application terminology. When you create an application program, any application software, we'll be installing it somewhere on a hardware or a server. If there is a web application, we'll be installing it on a server computer. Right? So that process we call it as deployment. Deploying the application program that you develop so that it will work in real time. Right? Making your application work in real time. So and all the necessary works that you need to do on the server. That process is called as deployment. Right? So once you have all the files, Java files, HTML files placed on your server, even then, simply if you send a request from your browser to these servlets, they'll not work. Even though you have compiled the Java program and generated the dot class files, then also it will not work. Unless you create this web.xml file, the servlet will not work. So what will be there in this web.xml file? The Tomcat web server, what it does is, it will not directly send a request to the servlet. It will verify the list of servlets available on the server within this web.xml file. For every servlet that you create, there will be an entry created in this web.xml file. So we'll be describing about the servlet, each and every servlet in this web.xml file using the XML tag. So you know XML is a markup language where we can use our own tags. That means user-defined. So there are some user-defined tags that we are going to use, but their names must be same for servlet. They should not be changed. We should not choose our own tag names. Because the Tomcat is created or designed in such a way. Tomcat web server will access these tags from this web.xml to know about the server. So we need to use only those particular tags, right? I'll show you how to create this web.xml file also. First, you need to know where to place all these things, how many folders you have to create, and where you need to create this folder, and what are the rules that you need to follow while creating all these folders. So first thing, in web apps folder, create a directory. In web apps directory, create a folder, and that folder name can be any of your choice. You can give any name, right? Depending on the application purpose, you can give any name for that. It is user defined. So you can give any name for that. Then inside this folder, we need to create web-inf folder, and all the letters must be in capital letters, and both these words web and inf must be separated by a hyphen symbol. There must not be any gap between uh, any letters or even between hyphen and the web and hyphen and inf, right? Then within the same newly created folder, alongside web-inf folder, all the HTML files that you are going to create must be stored in that folder only. Okay? Not inside web-inf, alongside, beside web-inf folder. Then inside web-inf folder, you need to create another folder with its name as classes. So this folder name also must be in lowercase letters only, like mentioned here, like it is mentioned here. The spelling must be exactly this. You cannot use whatever spelling you want. Okay, it is exactly CLASSES. And what we need to do with this classes folder is we need to place all our Java files and class files within this classes folder. Then after doing this, create an XML file, and you must name that XML file like this only, web.xml only. And where to place that web.xml file? In the web.inf folder alongside classes folder. Alongside classes folder, web.inf. What is this web.xml file called as? It is called as deployment descriptor. Only when this file is created, your Tomcat web server will deploy your servlet application. That will be accessible to clients. So until and unless you write this web.xml file, this will be a small file compared with the .class files and .java files that we generate and the HTML files that we create. This is a small thing. If this is not, if this is missing, then all these files will not be working. Okay, so this is a very important thing. So you need to be very careful when dealing with this servlet programs. It is not as simple as it is in PHP, right? So wrong route low వెళ్తానంటే if you try to go in wrong route, it will slap you. It will not excuse you like Python does or PHP does. Everything has to be in a systematic way for Java programming. So you know that very well. I told you many times earlier also. So you must be very careful in this. Okay? Fine. So now that you understood this directory structure and what is this web.xml, so now let me tell you what you need to write in web.xml file first. Then once we complete this web.xml file, how to create this web.xml file, later we'll see how to write a servlet, what is a servlet and how to write a servlet program. Okay, let me open this web.xml file for you. So every web.xml file will have a root tag, nothing but web app. Okay? Web hyphen app. This is the root tag. So you know what is a well-formed XML document and a valid XML document. So this web app is a well-formed XML document. It must follow all the syntax rules, and it must have only one root element, right? So that root element must be web hyphen app. Don't choose your own name, because the Tomcat will not understand if you choose a different name. It can understand only these names, these tag names, because it is created in such a way. Okay? So the root tag name is web app, web hyphen app in small letters. Don't use capital letters, use small letters. Then within that, you will have a tag, subtag, child tag, or servlet tag. So how many servlets you are going to create? For every servlet that you are going to create, you need to create one servlet tag. For every servlet that you are going to create, you need to create one servlet tag and corresponding one more servlet mapping tag. Right? So what is that you need to do in your web app, web.xml file? For every servlet that you are going to create in your application, you may create n number of servlets. You'll understand why we need to create that many servlets. Just like how we created so many .php files, one for registration, one for login, one for displaying the home page, like that. So for every different purpose, we are going to create a multiple, one separate servlet file, .java servlet file. Okay. So in that way, your application may have number of servlet files, number of .java files. Servlet is nothing but a .java file. Nothing but it is going to contain some Java code. So you may have n number of servlets, and for every servlet, if there are 5 servlets, for example, say, then you need to create this servlet tag and servlet mapping tag, right? Once for every servlet. So you can see how many times I have created this servlet mapping tag. This is 2, this is 3, right? And each time I create a servlet mapping tag, I'll also create a servlet tag. So how many times I've created servlet tag? 3 times, right? So that means you need to understand from this that this this web.xml file is serving how many servlets? 3 different servlets, right? And this servlet tag will contain, so these tag names must be exactly same. You cannot use your own tag, right? Because Tomcat will not understand all the tags, not just web app tag. All the tags that we are using in this web.xml file are must be created as I'm telling you now with the same names. Don't use any different names. Okay. This servlet tag must contain 2 child tags again. One is servlet name, another one is servlet class. And coming to servlet mapping tag, that also contains 2 child tags. One is servlet name, the other one is URL pattern. Right? So every servlet tag must contain 2 tags as childs. One is servlet name, the other one is servlet class, and every servlet mapping tag must have 2 childs. One is servlet name and the other one is URL pattern. So if there is a hyphen, there must definitely be, right? So this servlet tag and this servlet mapping tag together will serve one servlet. And that servlet name, you can give any name for that servlet, that is your choice. I'm giving post parameters. And this for this servlet, there will be a class defined, Java class. And that class name you have to give as a value for this servlet class tag. Right? In between servlet class opening tag and closing tag, you need to give what? The class name where you have created a .java file. I'll show you that .java file. What is this post parameter servlet? Right? So this is the .java file. What is the name of the class? I'm creating a class, public class, post parameter servlet extends generic servlet. This is a predefined class which is available in Java Servlet package. Okay, so you are importing the Java Servlet package and then creating a class which is a subclass for generic servlet class. So let us not go detail of this program, but just For your understanding sake, I'm telling you, I have created a class called post parameter servlet. So this entire thing, this entire class now will form this servlet. So servlet is nothing but a Java class, right? And that Java class is created by either extending this generic servlet class, or there is another class called HTTP servlet class, right? Anything can be used. I'll tell you what is the difference between generic servlet and HTTP servlet later. Just for your understanding sake, why I'm using this tag in Web Dot Xml file. I just want to show you that. So for that servlet class, we are creating this servlet tag, and I'm giving the name of that servlet also same. You can give anything. You can give X, Y, Z, like this, anything you can give. But it must be unique. You cannot give the same name for two different servlet classes, right? So for this, I'm giving post parameter servlet, and the class name must be exactly matching with this class that we create. This class name exactly must be given uh, in our web.xml file as the value of this servlet class tag, right? Then for this servlet, along with this servlet tag, you must also create servlet mapping tag. So here also, once again, you have to give the servlet name, and whatever name you have mentioned here in the servlet tag, the same thing you give it here. Don't give a different thing. There you have given X, here also give X. Don't give Y here, right? And then later URL pattern. This is another tag. This URL pattern is very important. You must give a forward slash, and then you need to mention the name of the class. Right? Either you can mention the name of the class or you can give anything. And whatever you give here, when you deploy this application and try to access this application, you need to use that one when you're running the servlet in the browser. I'll show you to you practically tomorrow's class because today you don't have time, we are running out of time. So I'm just explaining you this web.xml. In that way, there are three servlet classes, three different Java files you can see here: post parameter servlet.java, hello servlet.java, and color get servlet. For all these three servlets, I've created three different servlet tags. This is for post parameter, this is for hello servlet, and this is for color get servlet. Similarly, corresponding servlet mapping tags also. This is for post parameters, this is for hello servlet, and this is for color get servlet. For each and every servlet, you need to write all these tags. So this is the structure of this web.xml file. In your application, how many servlet files you will create? That many times you need to create this servlet tag. That many times you need to create this servlet mapping. Because in my application there are three servlets, I created servlet tag three times and servlet mapping tag also three times. And what will be there in the servlet tag means, again they'll have some child tags. Servlet tag, every servlet tag will have two child tags, servlet name and servlet class. And every servlet mapping tag will have two child tags. One is servlet name and second one is URL tag. So what must be written in these tags means, servlet name, the name of the servlet you can give uniquely, is your choice. And servlet class, this must be exactly matching with that class name that you have created the servlet .java file, right? So this is the .java file and this is the class name. So this should be matching here in my web.xml. Then similarly in servlet mapping tag, you need to give the same name that you gave in the servlet tag, servlet name, and then URL pattern. Uh, you have to give a forward slash, and after forward slash, whatever you are giving, this is your choice. But whatever you are giving here, the same thing you need to give in the browser when you are running this server. Okay, so in that way, you need to create for all the three servlets. Got it? Understood, all of you? So if you have any doubts, you can raise up to this topic where I completed. If you have any issues, you can raise it now. Let us be clear till here, and then later we can continue with the next thing tomorrow. Is that okay? Please respond. Am I audible? Any doubts? Any doubts still here? Doubts? Yes, you have doubts. Who is that? Nikhil F5. Speak, man. You have doubts. You respond. No doubt. Then why don't you respond at least with a text message in the chat? Anyone want to respond? Please respond with a text message. Rachel, Nikita, are you all there? Pooja, Nishit, Dheeraj, Yuva, are you all there? I think most of you are Yuva. Okay, fine. Now let me take your attendance.